If you're a Messianic Christian, I know you refer to yourself as a Jew. If you're a Messianic Jew watching this, just to prove to you right now very easily that you are violating this. If you're a Jew, a Messianic, and you're wanting to convert to Judaism, yet you will deny that you believe in Jesus because you'll say, well, his name's not Jesus, it's Yeshua. But you'll deny believing in the New Testament figure just to get a conversion. But that's deception. And also Jesus even said that, if you deny yourself before men, I will deny you before my Father in heaven. So you're throwing away your salvation anyway. So you might as well just give up Jesus anyway and just convert to Judaism and be done with it. Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of TNT, the Twisted New Testament, with Rabbi Stuart, the man Federow, from the Big H, Houston, Texas. Welcome back. I'm not going to say. I'm not. You heard it in your head anyway, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's just too funny. It'll never get old for me. There you go. So, welcome back, guys. Glad to see everybody here today. Let me pause this music so it doesn't leak through the background.
So, William, when you first started, what did you say TNT stood for?
Twisted New Testament. And it still stands for that. We took it off of there for a while because we were trying to not be too offensive, but I had to put it back.
Well, we were trying to replace it with Judaism and Christianity, A Contrast, which is the title of my first book.
Yes, but now you have two books. So
yes, I do.
Yes, so talking about the Twisted New Testament.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's funny. So here we go. Speaking of which, since you just mentioned them, bring them up, baby.
Wait a minute.
That's the way. He likes it.
I got the Portuguese. Here we go. The English.
Okay.
Ta-da!
There you go. Available on. Are those available on Kindle? I don't know. Are they?
Definitely. Well, yeah. Amazon Kindle, right? Yes.
Oh, cool. So audiobook. That's cool. Nice.
Right.
Wait. Well, yeah. Amazon Kindle. I think you can get them on audio. So that's cool.
Right.
Nice. There we go. All right. Cool. All right, so the label title for the show is Jewish Objections to Jesus. However, that's just the title. It'll cover all this, but in fact, it'll cover it in your rebuttal to this email information you receive from a pretty kind of roughhousing skeptic, someone who is not, from what you said, is not the most polite person you've ever engaged with. So
no, I just stopped engaging with him.
Okay, so go ahead and lay it out for us, and I'll follow you along.
Well, like William was saying, there's a gentleman, and I use the term really loosely, who is Christian. He calls himself a Messianic. He calls himself a Messianic Jew. He says very outlandish things with absolute confidence that what he says is the total truth, the gospel truth, pardon the expression. And very recently he had a essay on his page that really was an attack on counter-missionaries, and I wanted to respond to it, but I will not respond on his Facebook page. One, it's his Facebook page. If he were part of a group, that's one thing. But I'm not going to waste my time on his Facebook page because I don't know how he can take what I say and abuse it, but not give me a chance to respond to it, because I've seen him and his ilk do things like that, shall we say.
Sure.
Yeah. So William is going to put up on the screen his essay, and I don't know if he wrote the essay or if he's quoting somebody else's essay. It's very not clear on the way he did this post on his page.
And so, no pun intended, and we don't know if he is an essay or not. I'm just kidding. Hey, if he was Sephardic, you could call him an essay.
Okay.
Bad joke.
All right.
Bad joke. Okay.
So this is his essay that he put up there, which I'm going to read through and then respond to.
One little bit at a time, right?
One little bit at a time. So All right. Okay, let's go through this. The topic of missionary activity towards Jews is a highly sensitive issue, and rightly so. Deceptive missionary tactics, wherein individuals falsely present themselves as observant Jews while secretly seeking to convert other Jews, are a profound violation of truth and integrity. Such actions are not only dishonest, but also constitute a severe desecration of God's name. There is no justification for deceit in religious matters, and any attempt to lure Jews under false pretenses is utterly reprehensible. This is first off. He writes a paragraph, or he puts up somebody else's paragraph that makes this statement that makes me think he never read his own New Testament.
I was going to ask you, from what you just said, if he wrote this, why would he write this if he himself is a missionary?
Because he doesn't think that what he does is deceptive. He thinks that it's okay to say, well, my religion says I'm grafted in, so therefore I'm grafted in, and I'm just as much a Jew as you are, and I can be a Messianic Jew even though nobody in my ancestry, or maybe my DNA says somebody was Jewish.
Right.
I don't even remember what his particular circumstances are, and I don't care.
Right.
Uh-oh, coughing already. All right. So when he makes a statement that deceptive missionary tactics have no place in missionizing, has he read Paul? Paul?
Right. Okay, so we're going to respond to that first paragraph now, correct?
Yes. My question is very simple. How can he make the statement, there's no justification for deceit in religious matters? It makes me wonder has he even read his own Paul? Mm-hmm. So, for example, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 to 22.
Okay.
1 Corinthians chapter 9, 19 to 22.
Okay.
For though I be free from all men, yet have I made myself servant unto all, that I might gain the more. And unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. Verse 21. To them that are without law, as without law, being not without law to God, but under the law to Christ, that I might gain them that are without law. To the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. Mm-hmm. So the ends justify the means to him, and he's talking deceptive practices. Right. Pretend to be a Jew to the Jew, pretend to be under the law to those under the law, pretend to be without law to those who are without law, to the weak, pretending you're weak to gain the weak. I mean, I don't see how you can get anything clearer than this, that Paul is writing in favor of deceptive practices if it gets people to convert. Mm-hmm. Okay, next one from Paul, because there are no less than four different quotations from Paul where he is justifying deceptive practices that the gentleman who wrote this says there's no justification for deceit in religious matters. So in Philippians chapter 1, verse 18, Paul writes, what then, notwithstanding every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached, and I therein do rejoice, yea, and will rejoice. So he's putting a juxtaposition between pretense on one hand and truth in the other, and saying both are okay if it gets people to convert.
Right.
Now, there's a controversial statement in Romans chapter 3, verse 7. Okay? Paul makes the statement, quote, for if the truth of God hath more abounded through my lie to God's glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? And there are Christian apologetics for this verse, and they may be correct if you look at it, okay, to be honest, where Paul, when he writes in Romans chapter 3, verse 7, for if the truth of God has more abounded through my lie to God's glory, why yet am I judged a sinner? He is actually responding to people who might actually say this to contradict that. However, with the other two quotations we've already stated, we've already read, and the following one I'm going to, read, which is 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 16. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 16. Even though it appears that Paul is quoting people who might say this in Romans 3:7, he may actually believe it himself, because in context of everything else I'm reading, it would fit. So Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 16 writes, "But be it so, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile."
Mm-hmm.
So however you want to understand Romans 3:7, if you look at 2 Corinthians 12:16, Philippians 1:18, and 1 Corinthians 9:19 to 22, Paul clearly is justifying and rationalizing deceptive practices, which our author of this essay specifically said there's no justification for deceit in religious matters. So makes me wonder, in his attack on Jews for what they believe and for counter-missionaries for defending Judaism and God and the Bible, okay,
right.
Then it's, yeah, all right. All right. Paul was bragging about his craftiness and his use of guile, okay? Messianic Jews, and I'm talking about Messianic Jews. I'm not talking about, what I say. I'm talking about what Messianic Jews say about these paragraphs, about these verses from the Christian New Testament that Paul wrote. They are the ones who use them to justify their deceptive practices. This is how they understand what Paul wrote. So often in literature on like how to missionize the Jewish people, they will include at least 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 20 and following. All right. So I'm referencing their literature and what they wrote about these quotations.
Right.
Rationalizing and justifying deceptive practices because the ends justify the means. Okay? And what about Jews who have never been start over. What about Christians who have never been Jewish, who have no ancestry who are Jewish, who give themselves Jewish-sounding names in order to make themselves sound Jewish, even though they're Christian?
Kind of like Simon, Peter, Kepha, whatever.
Well, I'm thinking more like somebody named Lloyd Carson, who decides to change his name to Tuvia
Yehoshua ben Zion or something.
Tuvia Zaretsky, head of Jews for Jesus, Los Angeles.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Gotcha.
Born with the name Lloyd Carson, and then he claims that his Hebrew name, his Jewish name when he was Jewishly born, which I don't think I've ever seen proven, was Tuvia. And where he gets Zaretsky from, I have no idea. All right.
Okay, so we got that. That was the first paragraph. We've concluded that, I reckon, right? So or no?
Almost.
Okay.
See, the other issue is this essay is trying to tell us what is okay in tactics to missionize against us, and not giving us the respect to determine for ourselves what we will accept, what we will tolerate, what is good, what is bad. Okay?
Right.
Good Christians are going to disagree with this. They're going to disagree with our view of their tactics to missionize us. Okay? And their use of deceptive practices is disgusting to us. And by the way, many Christian organizations have condemned Christian missionaries for the deceptive practices. Okay? The question I would ask is, can't he understand anything of how and why I might feel the way I do when missionaries missionize Jewish people? Mm-hmm. Okay? My teacher at undergraduate used to say that between Jews and Christians, we are different peoples who hold different values, make different assumptions, talking to different peoples regarding different issues. And that's what we are. Okay, so now we go to the next paragraph.
First,
or maybe
before you go to the next paragraph, I was going to make a comment too on the first paragraph. Is if you're a Messianic Christian, pardon me, I know you refer to yourself as a Jew. If you're a Messianic Jew watching this right now, just to prove to you right now very easily that you are violating this by being a Messianic Jew the way you are, the easiest way to prove that is if you're a Jew, a Messianic, and you're wanting to convert to Judaism, yet you will deny that you believe in Jesus because you'll say, well, his name's not Jesus, it's Yeshua, but you'll deny believing in the New Testament figure just to get a conversion. But that's deception. And also Jesus even said that, if you deny yourself before men, I will deny you before my Father in heaven. So you're throwing away your salvation anyway. So you might as well just give up Jesus anyway and just convert to Judaism and be done with it. That's what it boils down to. But if you think...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
I was just going back to 1990. A person who was actually trying to convert to Judaism through me as the converting rabbi, or whatever you want to call it, in order to go to Israel, and instead of being just for Jesus, by his conversion through me, he was going to call himself a Jew for Jesus, and set up his mission in Israel. And that story was carried by the national newspaper called The Forward. So,
wow!
Please don't tell me there's no justification for deceit, and then think there's nothing wrong with pretending you're Jewish to the Jews in order to make converts.
Right? Absolutely.
Okay, or pretending you have this, you're grafted in, when that's nothing that the Jews believe in.
Right.
Okay. All right. At any rate. All right. So the next sentence. Okay. Again, I'm quoting his text. However, there is a clear distinction between deceptive missionary activity and the genuine expression of faith by a traditional, well-meaning Christian. What he doesn't understand is that the genuine expression of faith remains obnoxious from the view of their targets, the Jewish community that they're trying to convert.
Yep.
They can be as well-meaning as they want. You can be very sincere and very wrong. Just because you're sincere doesn't mean that what you believe sincerely is right. We're the Jews are the ones who get to claim what is obnoxious to us, not a Christian missionary.
So I have
go ahead.
So my question is, this person, when I read that first sentence, an illustration that comes in my mind is you have somebody who is stealing food, which is a clear violation of the law, just because they want the money. And then you have somebody who's stealing food, which is a clear violation of the law, to feed their kid. Right? So it doesn't matter if your intention is pure or not. It's still stealing. It's still deception, no matter what. And you said in the first paragraph that it's totally forbidden, and it's a very deceptive missionary attack, where blah, blah, blah goes on. It says that it's a profound violation of truth and integrity. So whether you're doing it for a good reason or a bad reason, that doesn't matter.
Well, they may think that it's a good reason, just like Paul thought it was a good thing to be deceptive. Okay? But on one hand, he condemns deceptive practices, and then he follows deceptive practices. Mm-hmm. They call themselves Messianic Jews. They're not Jews.
Yeah, right.
And the vast majority of membership in Messianic synagogues were never Jewish and have no ancestors who were Jewish. Oh, they might know that somewhere in their background, they took a DNA test, okay, which tells you about your ancestry. It tells us nothing about you.
Yeah.
All right. So the next sentence that he wrote, if a Christian in good faith desires to share what they believe to be the good news, and they do so with transparency and respect, there should be no issue. The simple act of wanting to convert us to their faith shows they have no respect for us and what we believe. To the contrary, they disrespect what we hold dear, our Judaism, our belief system, our Bible, our understanding of our Bible, and our right to believe what we wish without interference and without judgment. And the fact that they are missionizing us is a judgment of what we believe as being wrong, which is insulting to us. So don't tell me that just because they desire to share what they believe that it's okay. Okay? And again, I hope to say this tonight. If they can do it to us, we can do it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
You know, and well, we'll get to that more in a minute. Okay. When I make the statement that I believe in wholeheartedly, that Christianity remains far closer in beliefs to the pagan idolatry of the Greco-Roman world than with anything found in the Tanakh, except, of course, when viewed through their own Christian-colored glasses. When I say that, they're not going to be happy hearing it. Oh, but I believe it. I'm merely sharing what I believe to be the good news. And I'm transparent and I'm respectful of them. I respect them so much that I want them to understand the real truth, which is that Christianity is idolatry. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not going to like hearing that. They're certainly going to disagree with me. So if they have the right to disagree with and argue against it, so do we. And that means it's okay to be a counter-missionary. And if you don't like it,
sure.
The idea, I'm sorry.
But there's nothing, like being a counter-missionary does not violate that first paragraph. We're not deceiving anybody. We're coming right out and telling you, dude, you're wrong. So it's not like that. Whereas the missionary is secretly acting like a Jew just to try to win you over.
And William, even if they don't act like a Jew, even if they are point blank saying, we're Christians, we want you to see the light, the fact that they think we don't have the light of God, okay, is an insult to our religion, insult to our God, insult to our history. It's insulting. Mm-hmm. That's not respectful.
Yeah.
If they respected us and respected our wishes, leave us alone. The idea of a dying, saving man God is found all over the Mediterranean world. I think Dionysus was actually called the Savior God. And by the way, Dionysus' mother was human and his father was Zeus. Perseus, whose mother was Danae, was made pregnant not through the act of sex, but through a shower of gold, which means that she was a virgin since no sex was involved to make her pregnant. The Christian, including the author of this essay I'm responding to on his page, might be insulted at what I'm saying, but I don't care. Just as he will not care about how I respond to their missionizing and to their inherent insults to my faith, my religion, my belief system, my Judaism. Or I might say God's Judaism, because he's the one who founded it. Next sentence. If a person states that they are not interested, the appropriate response is to simply part ways in peace. This is an honest and ethical approach that aligns with basic human decency. This is how it should be. But the proper response is not just to say, and I'm talking about the Jewish response to Christian missionizing. The proper response is not just to say, oh, sorry, I'm not interested. The proper response is to learn how to respond to Christian missionaries and to respond in kind. Mm-hmm. The proper response to being missionized is to fight fire with fire and quote passages from the TaNaCh that contradict the basic theology of Christian idolatry. Deuteronomy 24:16, Exodus chapter 32, Ezekiel 18 verse 20, Numbers chapter 23 verse 19, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Give back to them what they give us. Stop being Jewish Uncle Toms and da mala hashib, as it says in the Talmud, know how to respond and then respond with it. Next paragraph, and this is his writing again. The problem is further complicated by the response of Jewish anti-missionary groups. Many of these organizations claim to counter missionary efforts, but their methods are often just as problematic. Oh, I'm so sorry you find it problematic. They frequently employ half-truths, omit essential details, and at times outright misrepresent the reality of historical and theological matters. The counter-missionaries do this, but the missionaries don't? Talk about how convenient to believe that. And believe me, it's only problematic to missionaries when they hear dissent from Jews who aren't afraid of their own shadows and will therefore argue and disagree and show why.
Okay, to comment on the last one, I find it problematic, being they actually use that word. It says, but their methods, talking about us, are often just as problematic. And you might have commented on they frequently employ half-truths. I've never had anybody that I'm aware of present a half-truth and this is 10 years of being counter-missionary. Omit essential details, wrong. That's called removing context. We don't do that. That's how we came to our conclusions, because we accept the context. And at times outright misrepresent the reality of historical and theological matters. They're accusing us of doing the very thing that they had to do to be able to allow Christianity to exist.
Exactly. Exactly. And to allow Christians to missionize, they have to employ half-truths,
Yeah.
they have to omit essential details, and they have to outright misrepresent the reality of historical and theological matters.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Like all the verses I gave you from Paul, that after he attacks those who use deceptive practices, and he's omitting essential details, like Paul used deceptive practices. And that's the reality of historical and theological matters from Christianity. So it's only problematic to missionaries, especially when they don't listen to Jews who are Uncle Toms and who respond weakly and, I'm not interested, but thank you anyway, instead of inviting them in and saying, well, then what about Deuteronomy 24:16? Okay, next one. One glaring example is the historical reality behind Rabbi Yeshua of Nazareth and his disciples. I've said this, I'll say it again. The term rabbi was not used as a title until after the destruction of the temple in the year 70, approximately at least 2, maybe 3 generations after Jesus was dead and buried.
Right.
So when these Christian missionaries called Jesus Rabbi Yeshua, and they don't even get the pronunciation of his name correctly, I find the hypocrisy just amazing to me. But what he attacks us with, we can attack him with. What we attack him with, he can attack us with. So stalemate, like usual. Next paragraph. The overwhelming textual and historical evidence demonstrates that they were observant Jews within Torah Judaism. He's talking about the earliest Christians. The idea that Yeshua's earliest followers were Torah observant Jews is not some fringe notion, really. It is well documented in historical records, including the New Testament itself. Second Temple Jewish literature and early writings of the Church Fathers where this is mentioned explicitly. If they were so Torah observant, why are they okay with reaping on Shabbat? Why are they okay with misquoting and misrepresenting verses in the Tanakh? Why, like Stephen, when they talk about the history of the Jewish people, to ingratiate themselves, that's a tactic, by the way, to ingratiate themselves to their Jewish audience they're preaching to, why do they get their histories wrong? Mm-hmm. Why do they misquote, intentionally so, verses from the Tanakh? Why do they rip verses out of the context in which they are written? Why do they mistranslate them? And why do they make up verses that don't exist? And why do they make up stories to make it look like Jesus fulfilled these non-existent verses? Mm-hmm. And he shall be called a Nazarene. If that's a quote that the New Testament writer says is a quote from a prophet, show me the prophet that says, quote, and he shall be called a Nazarene.
So to give credit somewhere, I would say that I would agree with a fraction, a very small fraction of what he wrote in this paragraph. The part where it says, including the New Testament itself, there are probably dozens of verses that I have found that really does point to them being Jewish. I hate using Messianic because I think it's just right. Wrong. That them being observant-ish Jewish, not the Christian that we know today. But as far as it says well-documented in historical records, I don't know where they could find something like that, or in the Second Temple Jewish literature where it talks about Torah observant Christians.
William, and I'm going to say this again, so pardon my redundancy by saying the same things over and over again more than once or twice. Just because a person is a Jew doesn't mean their beliefs, doesn't mean their actions, doesn't mean what they do, what they write, what they think, what they say is Jewish.
Right.
Just because they themselves are Jewish.
I had customers when I was in construction in Austin, a particular couple that were Jewish, and they celebrated Purim. They practiced or played around with all the holidays, but they were not religious at all. They were completely secular Jews, totally secular. But they had a Passover dinner because I guess it's their heritage. They remember it. Maybe their parents were religious, but they themselves are plain no secular Jews. And they were enjoying all the Jewish holidays, So okay.
Okay. His next sentence.
Okay.
So what happens when individuals come to understand this reality and seek to reclaim their Jewish roots of faith while maintaining their belief in Yeshua as the Messiah? There are no Jewish roots to Christianity.
Right.
Just because the first Christians might have been Jewish does not mean that what they believed was Jewish. Is everything done or said by a Christian?
Mm-hmm.
And careful, missionaries, unless you want us Jews to determine what is a Christian thing to do or say or believe just because it was a Christian who did it. Because if you say anything Jews create is Jewish, then anything a Christian creates is therefore Christian. And let's see, where would I start with claiming something that Christians created and did as a Christian thing to do? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. They, which means those you don't agree with, oh, they're not real Christians. How convenient.
Yep.
So for every person who's a Christian, there's another Christian telling me that the first Christian's not really a Christian. So there are no Christians in the world. Because if I have to believe every Christian who tells me some other Christian isn't really Christian, then there are no Christians, because there's always somebody who'll tell me, oh, that's not real Christianity.
Yep.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's like whenever I love it when Christians will tell me and other people who have walked away from Christianity, their only comeback is, well, you must have never been saved to begin with.
Of course, right. Doesn't matter how many people they saved.
Yeah.
They really weren't, full believers.
Right.
But
damage control.
Every Christian missionary, okay, who calls himself a Messianic Jew, they were Orthodox when they grew up.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I love
but
that.
There's no deception. No deception.
Yep.
Okay. His next sentence I find interesting.
Okay.
A return to the true background and understanding of the faith of Yeshua. Okay? So what happens when individuals come to understand this reality and seek to reclaim their Jewish roots of faith while maintaining their belief in Yeshua as the Messiah? A return to the true background and understanding of the faith of Yeshua. The faith of Jesus is called Judaism. The faith about Jesus is called Christianity. And their New Testament is so self-contradictory, how can any of it be granted any authority, except, of course, by believing Christians who must do so to maintain their unbiblical faith of Christianity?
Hmm.
So they're not returning to the background and understanding of the faith of Yeshua, for example, when they do a Passover Seder. The vast majority of elements to a Passover Seder were invented at least not until after the year 70 when the temple fell, because the whole purpose, function, and reason to have a Seder is to replace the ceremony and rituals that centered around the temple. And when Jesus lived, the temple was still in existence. And according to Exodus 12, verse 8, I think that's accurate, there's only 3 symbols to a Passover meal at the time Jesus would have lived, because the temple existed, and that's the Passover lamb, the unleavened bread, and the bitter herbs. In no gospel does it ever mention anything about bitter herbs. There's no mention of a Passover lamb, except to say that Jesus was that lamb. That's got a lot of problems to it. When we get closer to Passover, we'll be talking about it, I'm sure. Okay. And the bread used at the Synoptic Gospels and John at the Passover, there are 2 words in Hebrew. One is leavened bread, lechem. One is unleavened bread, matzah. There are 2 words for each for the same idea in Latin, in the Vulgate, and also in the Koine Greek, artos and adzumos. I'm probably butchering their pronunciation. But every single time the word bread is used in reference to what Jesus had at the Last Supper, it's leavened bread, artos, instead of adzumos.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So there's an awful lot of problems with saying that Jesus was was doing a Passover Seder, and these Christians who want to think of themselves as Jews, part of their deceiving themselves is, oh, we're going to do what Jesus did at the Last Supper. You're not.
I find it interesting that I have seen a lot of pictures, because I use Photoshop a lot and Adobe, and I try to research pictures a lot. I have never found not that it's not out there. I've never found a picture of the Passover, the Last Supper, the Passover Seder picture with anything but fluffy bread on the table. I've never seen unleavened bread or matzah or crackers as there. It's always a big fluffy loaf of bread.
Well,
I found that.
And any artist, even what's the one by Da Vinci or Michael? No, I think it's Da Vinci. The Last Supper, where they're all facing the camera. And I think there's loaves of bread on the table.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
next, so he talks about these Christians who are finding the Jewish roots of their faith. There are none. And returning to the true background and understanding of the faith of Jesus. Okay, and then he says the anti-missionary group strongly oppose this development. Why? Because one of their fundamental arguments has always been that believers in Yeshua are antinomian. Antinomian is against the law, that they reject the Torah and Jewish tradition. First of all, they rationalize that Paul was antinomian, against the law, and they claim that he really wasn't. But it remains Christian scholars who first called him antinomian, and most Christian scholars still do.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's something called the new look. No, I can't remember what it's called, but where they're trying to reinterpret everything Paul said to make it look like he wasn't against the law, even though he called the law a curse. Even they said the purpose of the law is to teach you cannot keep it, so that you'll understand and recognize your need for Jesus. It's just amazing to me. Okay, he continues in his essay. But when certain individuals prove otherwise, when they fully embrace the Torah, the commandments, and the traditions, this argument collapses. No, it doesn't. They themselves might embrace Torah laws and practices. Well, practices at any rate. They certainly don't embrace Torah law. But that changes nothing regarding Paul. Paul still wrote against the law. He still felt that once you accept Jesus, you don't keep the law, because keeping the law denies the efficacy of the coming of Jesus. It's a school teacher that no longer is necessary. That's what he writes. Okay. Next part of this essay, this paragraph. Another route must be taken, and one I've witnessed, the anti-missionaries do not like. What is more awesome to learn of these facts and then follow them to their obvious conclusion? And what is so wrong about this reality which is based on truth? On another note, there is no historical or halachic issue with a group of Jews believing that their rabbi is the Messiah. Throughout Jewish history, various schools of thought have maintained Messianic expectations around certain rabbinic figures. The Talmud itself records multiple discussions about rabbis who were believed to be potential messiahs. Belief in the Messiah is part of Judaism. Disagreement over who he is does not necessarily remove someone from the fold. Who are you to tell us who is a Jew? Who are you to tell us how we define our faith, our religion, our people, citizenship in that peoplehood, and the naturalization laws to become a Jew? Who are you to tell us what our religion should not believe? The audacity of this is just amazing to me, although usually typical for Christian arrogance. And remember something, okay? He writes, let's see, the Talmud itself records multiple discussions about rabbis who were believed to be potential messiahs. Yes, they were in fact potential messiahs until they died without doing all the real Messiah will do when he gets here. They proved themselves to be false messiahs when they did not do everything the Messiah is supposed to do. And if they taught unbiblical things, or if a faith developed around them that held unbiblical ideas, they were rejected out of biblical law, out of biblical values, out of what the Bible says. We have to reject them.
Yep. So
just because Jews believe that there will become a Messiah, and just because Jews believe that the rabbi they held high esteem for might have been or could have been the Messiah, they stopped believing it unless, like Christianity, they reformulated the meaning of the word Messiah to fit what their man did. I urge you to read When Prophecy Fails.
What's it called? Oh, When Prophecy Fails. Got it.
When Prophecy Fails. We've discussed it often before. Okay. Next paragraph. Yet false accusations and misrepresentations abound. I have personally seen anti-missionary groups engage in character assassination, deceitful rhetoric, and deliberate distortions of what believers in Yeshua actually practice and believe. Don't like it when it's done to you, huh? One may disagree with this or dislike its implications, but facts cannot be changed to accommodate personal biases. That's what you will say to me in the next couple of paragraphs, but it needs to be said about you just as much as you say it about counter-missionaries. One may disagree with this or dislike what we counter-missionaries are saying, but facts cannot be changed to accommodate personal biases. And you got personal biases too. I admit mine. I hope you admit yours. Next, this too is a desecration of God's name. Bearing false witness against another human being is a severe sin, and twisting facts to fit an agenda is intellectually dishonest. For you too. At the end of the day, history, theology, and textual evidence all point to the fact that Yeshua's teachings were firmly rooted in first century Judaism. One may disagree with this or dislike its implications, but facts cannot be changed to accommodate personal biases. One more time, I'm going to say this. You claim that at the end of the day, history, theology, and textual evidence all point to the fact that Yeshua's teachings were firmly rooted in first century Judaism. Because Jesus's beliefs was Judaism, but it's the belief about Jesus called Christianity that we deeply disagree with and find to be unbiblical. At the end of the day, history, theology, and textual evidence all point to the fact that Christianity is far closer to the pagan idolatry of the Greco-Roman world than it will ever be to anything in the Tanakh or in Judaism, as we discussed already tonight. Lying and distorting what God said in the Tanakh is a greater indication of bearing false witness against God and his God-created Judaism, and we Jews will continue to defend God and Judaism any way we can. And hey, if you don't like it,
lump it.
You're nicer than I am.
That's funny.
And his final paragraph, a more honest and constructive dialogue is needed, one rooted in truth, respect, and acknowledgement of the rich and complex history that has shaped this conversation for 2,000 years. The conversation has been doing this for 2,000 years, and you're right, there's a more honest and constructive dialogue that's needed, okay? But that can only happen when there is true truth, true respect, and true acknowledgement of the rich and complex history of Christianity in its distortion of Judaism, in its distortion of God, and its distortion of the Bible. None of which can happen so long as you think you have to save us from our Judaism by converting us to your paganism, to your belief in a dying, saving man-God.
Where does it say anywhere in Tanakh at all that we have to believe in and worship the Messiah when he comes?
And when does it ever say that the real Messiah, when he comes, is going to be doing miracles? I don't remember it actually saying that. There are certain things that will happen.
Sure.
But where does it say that the real Messiah, when he comes, brings back people from being dead? You know, kind of like Elijah and
Yeah, I was
Elisha.
going to say, yeah, that's true.
Okay? I mean, does that make Elijah and Elisha the real Messiah?
Right.
Okay? You know, the world will acknowledge God as God. That's number one, first and foremost. So you want to call that, I guess, miraculous? Go ahead, but that's not what usually is meant by, saying somebody is going to do miracles. And what does it say in Deuteronomy? That just because a person says he's going to do a miracle and then he does that miracle, if his message contradicts what you already know to come from God, you got to reject the messenger and you got to reject his message as being unbiblical. And just like Jews have rejected and will reject Christianity, and as we've done for 2,000 years and will do for 2,000 more.
Yep. That prophet or dreamer or dream shall be put to death.
Funny thing how that says that, isn't it?
Looks like almost Jesus deserved to die. He caused his own death.
Well, when you go into the temple and overturn tables and do violence, you're drawing attention to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Not that he did no violence, like Isaiah tells us in the 53rd chapter. Okay. But he did do violence, and it doesn't say he only did justified violence. You see, this person in Isaiah 53 does no violence. And by doing the violence, he brought attention to himself and got himself crucified.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think Rabbi Skobach pointed out that Jesus had, when standing before Pilate, He asked him if he was the king of the Jews, and Jesus didn't deny it. He just basically said, "You say it. You say that I am." Now you could take that either way, but if I was fixed to be put to death, and I was not, I would say, "No, I never said that." But Jesus never pleaded at all. He was just kind of like, "You say it, whatever." So if Jesus really did present himself as the king of the Jews, that's why he died, because he's like fighting kingdom against kingdom, and going to create a division between
again, William. If what this gentleman said is true, that everything Jesus said comes from Jewish sources, that shows that the religion of Jesus was Judaism. Mm-hmm. Okay, we don't object to those things that are blatantly true because they come from Judaism. What we object to is this deification of a human, kind of like Pharaoh in Egypt. Okay, Dionysus, Attis, Ra, Perseus, Hercules, whose mother was human, his father was Zeus. I mean, it's the religion about Jesus that we find so problematic.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So, okay, well, that's been a fairly good topic and coverage for tonight for the actual title. I'm probably going to give it a slightly different title, more fine-tuned for the replay. The replay should come out
whenever.
Probably Wednesday or Thursday. Pardon me. Today is Monday. Yeah, so either Wednesday or Thursday. I got to get Rabbi Skobach's out tomorrow night, and then yours will be out on. Yeah, there we go. So the 10-year anniversary for the show for TaNaCh Talk will happen in July. It looks like it's going to happen in the third week of July, is what it looks like, which is going to be July the 20th. It's going to be on a Sunday. It'll be a one-day event. I'm going to give more details as we go along. It's going to be one full-day event. You can get your own tickets to the hotel and stuff, so I don't want to deal with all that. That's going to be per independent. There won't be any food provided. People will have a nice long 2-hour lunch break, and they can go scatter and come back for the next lecture, however that works out. But that's that's going to be the bare bones of it. Rabbi Singer will be there to debate Jonathan Sheffield, and that will happen at probably 7 p.m. on Sunday, from 7 to 10 on Sunday, more than likely. Might be 6 to 9, since it's a Sunday. People might want to get back to work on Monday. So those are the basic raw bones of it. We're going to refine that even more later. I've got some wonderful help from Lisa and Wayne Craig. I'm very, very grateful for them, and also Pat and Joni. Those are going to join in on helping us get this thing organized. And huge shout out for Greg McBride, because he's going to be the one up fronting pretty much most of the money for this event, and so the ticket sales will recover all those funds. So we'll get with you later for the details on what the ticket costs are going to be. I could get to you in the ballpark, but if that change, it would hurt your feelings more than likely, because I'm the type that doesn't like.
No, don't say prices until you know the price and stick to it.
I know what expenses we're going to have to cover for the entire event is going to be somewhere in the ballpark of, and don't freak out, but the expenses for this thing could be up close to. Yes, it could be, because we're going to have security regardless, and professional security. The building, I actually have a hall here in my town that can host like 200 people, and they rent this thing out for $1,500 a day, and this is in our little tiny town. So renting it out for one day, because my think is we're probably going to have to rent it out for maybe 2 separate timings, one for rabbis and one for a different thing. And so if we have to rent it twice, if you figure they're $1,500, we'll say $2,000 because it's a hotel, and that's twice, it's $4,000. Then we've got rabbis' funds, like for the whole thing, is like $7,500, and then we got security. It's probably going to be another $3,000 or $4,000. So when it comes right down to it, we're just got to compensate. We're going to figure out, guesstimate how many people are going to possibly show up, and we're going to get a room that'll hold 300, and hope we sell all 300 tickets. And if we do, then we should have enough money left over to bless a few people who actually are knee deep in helping organize this thing, and part of it, you being one of them as well. Now, I'm muting your microphone because this is not you don't have anything to do with that part. But that's what's on my brain, and that's the direction I'm going with how we produce this thing.
I think it's going to be in Austin, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be in Austin. That's correct. Austin, July 20th. Yes.
Oh, you know the date?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be the third weekend in July. The third Sunday should be on the 20th. well, there'll be more details. I would like. It'd be kind of cool to have either, I think, all day thing there. But just know that's where it's starting from, and we'll kind of refine it as we go along. I just know that we want to make sure that that everything's covered, and I will not be handling the funds on this thing because I don't want to. I just want to avoid any scrutiny later on by somebody saying, "What did William use all the money for?" I'm out of that. I'm just going to tell you, I'll put the price up, and I've got somebody else assigned for that, so that way no one will have to wonder if I'm just trying to do some sort of get rich quick scheme. I'm going to keep all the money. It's not how it works. So.
That's too bad. I wish they could make you rich.
So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a fun day. You and I had talked about it would be nice to maybe have 2 separate days, so.
I just think the more time people have to be with each other and be in community with each other.
Right.
So.
Well, everybody will be able to decide at the last minute if they want to stay or not, because the only thing you'll have to prepay for is the tickets, and we'll have names assigned to each ticket so we know who's coming in, who's not, who's accounted for. But as far as food goes, y'all will be able to take a long lunch break in the middle of the day to go do that. But ideally, it's going to be probably from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. One of those sort of scenarios with activities going on. They're not going to have auctions. This is going to be a very simple laid out thing. You're just going there, you're going to sit, and you're going to communicate with the people there. I'm pushing Rabbi to do another really amazing presentation. We are. I'm going to help you right through that. Trust me, it's going to be great.
Okay. So, I just don't have the strength anymore.
You don't have to. I've already got a plan for that too.
And it's up on YouTube, by the way.
But what we're going to do is not.
By the middle or end of April,
yes,
we'll have 1 million views of the Hebrew Jumpstart.
That's amazing.
That's 1 million views in about 2.25 years.
Wow, that's amazing. So that's going to be a fun feature of this thing too for people who do come for that, because we're going to have a completely different spin. It's going to be interactive with people who are wanting to watch and learn. They're going to be able to get up and actually do movements and put things and try to spell words on a little Velcro padded wall with these letters, and and we're going to make a fun game out of it. So and it'll be using the same exact layout as your Hebrew Jumpstart video. But you're not going to have to get up and walk around. You're just going to be able to relax and hold the microphone and talk to people and call on people who you want to have come up and move and add and spell things, to kind of see how well their practiced are with their letters. It's going to be a blast. It's probably going to be one of my funnest parts of the of the activity part anyway. So, but yeah, so just plan on coming up here. And I'll get out with more details as soon as I can. But yeah, that's going to be good. It'll be Rabbi Singer will be debating Jonathan Sheffield. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button. Turn on notifications. Otherwise, you won't get notified. You can follow the YouTube channel or whatever. But unless you turn on notifications, you won't get notified when things go up. And then be sure to share these videos with your friends.
If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.